Welcome to Hanging with the Herd. Today we got Ryan Talbot, Buffalo Bills sports writer. He writes for QueenCitySports.net. He's done some writing for the Bleacher Report and BuffaloBillsDraft.com. He can tell you a little bit about what he's done, and we're going to be talking Buffalo Bills rookies, some of the later round picks since we already discussed the early picks, and we're going to be talking about our undrafted free agents and who we think will and won't make the team this year. So why don't you introduce yourself, Ryan?
Hi, my name is Ryan Talbot, elementary teacher by day, Bills writer by night. I write for Queen City Sports now for about a year. I've been with Bleacher Report as well as Pro Football Focus in the fantasy department very briefly, and now I'm also writing for Buffalo Bills Draft.
Awesome.
Ryan, are you a Bills fan at all?
I am. Lifelong Bills fan. Grew up in the area. Always have loved the Bills. So I'm sure there is a little bit of bias sometimes in my writing, although I try not to.
There we go.
No, I've read quite a bit of your stuff on Queen City Sports, and you're not biased compared to a lot of the writers out there. Very realistic Bills fan, I might say. So
I appreciate that.
Today we brought Ryan in to kind of discuss. You guys have heard us discuss the picks, basically E.J. Manuel through Marquise Goodwin. So today we're going to kind of talk about the later picks and some of the undrafted free agents and who we're buying and selling as a chance to make the team. So we'll hop right into it there with our pick, our first safety off the board there, Duke Williams, safety out of Nevada. What are your guys' thoughts on him?
Strong pick, actually. Very strong pick out of Nevada. Character issues, just like Kiko, just like the undrafted free agent Derrick Rogers, who we'll talk about later. But in terms of actual ability on the field, one of the better safeties on the board at that time. Hard hitter, good hands for a safety especially. My one flaw that I have with him is he can be a little over-aggressive sometimes in coverage. I've noticed that he will bite a little bit on play-action passes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the same thing I was going to say. He definitely is an extremely hard hitter. I know his Twitter handle was Headhunter, so he definitely loves to hit hard. I mean, his size isn't what I would have wanted, but I mean, he seems like a pretty good size. I believe he's 5'11", if I'm not mistaken, and yeah, but I think it was a good pick.
Yeah, I think it was a strong pick as well. We got to stockpile safeties, not knowing the future of Bird and not knowing what Aaron Williams is going to be able to do at the safety position. But
Absolutely.
My biggest concern with him watching the highlights is he's got to watch that helmet-to-helmet contact in the NFL.
Yeah.
He'll pile on fines and penalties to the Bills if he doesn't bring the shoulder in instead of the helmet.
Very much so. He'll start the season on special teams for the most part, and I think he'll be very impressive there. And then I think he will start rotating into the safety rotation by early in the season.
Similar to how Searcy did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. And so, after him, then we go back-to-back with the safety picks with Jonathan Meeks, who I really didn't know anything about when they pulled him off the board. What were your thoughts on that pick?
I had Meeks as a 7th round to undrafted free agent, so I wasn't very high on him myself. Again, he's going to be one of those guys that comes in and he will play special teams this year. And eventually I think he could be a rotational safety. I don't see him as a starter in the NFL. I've been wrong about players before, though, and I hope I am here. Buddy Nix and company, they love those guys from the ACC. So I wasn't surprised when I saw the safety from Clemson come off the board. So.
Yeah. I mean, with me, the same thing. He definitely played for a pretty big conference. So, he played against some good competition. With what I've seen so far, it's he tends to know how to roam the field pretty good. And he does have a pretty good size as well. I want to say he's 6'1". So, yeah. I think I like it, but just like you said, I don't see him starting anytime soon. But with Bird, not having a long-term contract, you kind of never know.
Oh, absolutely. It's good that they drafted a few safeties and cover all bases. You never know what could happen.
Yep. Yep.
Right, and I'm interested, to see if either of these two guys will be able to transition to like that third or fourth cornerback option, maybe down the road, bring them in the slot, or kind of how Scott ended up coming in towards like a hybrid outside linebacker type of thing, somebody that you bring in on third down coverage, just
Right.
for a little bit of extra zone coverage,
Yep.
just because we seem a little heavy on safety right now for my
Yeah.
liking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then after I was surprised after going back-to-back safeties, I got a little upset when I saw a kicker come up. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Pierre. I'll let you go first.
Well, no. Well, he definitely. I was surprised at first. I have to say that I was definitely surprised. I think that we can always get a kicker, in free agency, but for them to actually draft a kicker, I think it means something. It definitely means that Ryan Lindell is trouble. Um, he does have a strong leg. He has some 60-yard kicks on his resume, so I think it was. If we were going to get a kicker, he seemed like he was one of the best, on the board.
Yeah. I did have Hopkins listed as the best kicker in the draft this year. A lot of people want to blame Chen Gailey from last year for why Lindell didn't get many opportunities to kick from 50-plus yards. And it's easy to blame Gailey because he did have some terrible in-game management. But at the same time, he also knew what Lindell was doing in practices that week, what he was doing in pre-games, and how accurate he was. I do think that I believe this is his 14th or 15th year in the NFL. He is starting to lose a little bit of that power in his leg. It's kind of the same reason we brought in Potter last year to be a kickoff specialist. The only problem with Potter was he couldn't kick field goals to save his life. Hopkins, on the other hand, was 25 for 30 this year on field goal attempts. In 2011, he led the ACC in scoring with 119 points, I believe. And he went down as the FBS all-time leading kick scorer. So he has some pretty good credentials. And in the sixth round, you're not going to get many players that are the best at their position other than, special teamers. So I truly didn't mind it, and I think he will beat Lindell for the job this year, and Lindell will be released.
I gave an emotional tweet as soon as we picked him, and I was really upset that we went kicker. But then I started watching a little bit of video on him and reading more about him, and he does have a solid leg. You need that to win games in Buffalo. There's a few games if we would have kicked the 40-plus yard field goal, we could have been in the game at the end. And,
yeah, very true.
And the coaching staff came in and said there was going to be competition at every position. So kicker's no different than all the other positions. So bring them into training camp, see what the kids got.
Yeah,
that's very, very true. Yep.
So, and then we went with the position that I thought we were going to go for a little bit earlier in the draft. There was a real good amount of talent at the tight end position in the draft this year. And we ended up going tight end late in the draft with the 7th-round pick with Chris Gregg out of Arkansas. I didn't have much of an opinion about him before the draft, so what was your thought as a writer?
I was actually very high on Chris Gregg. I mocked him to the Bills in several mock drafts when I was still a Bleacher Report. I believe one or two over the last few months as well. I compared Jordan Reed to Aaron Hernandez of New England. Chris Gregg is actually somewhat similar to the type of player to an Aaron Hernandez type. He's very fast. He's not a prototypical tight end. He's a little undersized at 6'3". He's very fast, though. He's had some bad luck with injuries. He had a knee injury this year. He dislocated his left ankle one year. Just some really freak injuries. And then this year at Arkansas, they didn't have much of an offensive line, so I truly think there were a lot of plays that Tyler Wilson was just kind of getting the ball out as quickly as possible, and the receivers and tight ends weren't necessarily running their routes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping that we would have got a tight end, early in the draft, like a Vance McDonald or a player like that. But I mean, just like Ryan said, he definitely has speed. Where that's what it's looking like, we're going to be going. But, yeah, I mean, I do like that Aaron Hernandez analogy.
Thank you.
It definitely does make sense with that because they are both pretty fast. They're almost around the same height as well. So
And after I kind of saw more about him and saw some tape, I think that's how they'll use him, as one of those tight ends that actually kind of lines up, similar to how a receiver like a Hernandez. You don't really see Hernandez with his hand in the ground blocking a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the trend in the NFL.
Right. Greg is actually a little, he's pretty strong actually at blocking too if you watch him on film. A lot of people think because he's a little undersized he wouldn't be that great of a blocker, but I'm actually impressed with his blocking. Obviously I don't think he's going to come in and have the impact that Hernandez did from day one, but I'm not expecting Manuel to be Tom Brady either.
Sure.
Tom Brady can make anyone look much better than they are. Not saying that Hernandez isn't a great tight end.
And now Ryan, I actually didn't see a lot of his tape. How was his hands?
He has great hands. He has wide receiver hands, is what I would call it. He can make those tough catches. Any of those low throws, those balls that are away from the body, he has fantastic hands.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And so I guess, now we can move into the undrafted free agents here, and who everyone was talking about. A lot of people were talking about during the draft, why didn't we go grab this guy? And then it came across my Twitter feed that we ended up signing Derek Rogers, and a lot of hype. What are your thoughts?
I love Derek Rogers coming out of Tennessee Tech. Once again, it was the whole character issues. Nick's had a history of not really pursuing players with character history. I didn't know how much of that had to do with Nick on his own, or also Nick's and possibly Chan Gailey when Gailey was there. It's a new regime now with Doug Marrone, so I think Marrone's willing to take some risks on some guys. Back in February, I compared Derek Rogers to Eric Moulds. Great Bills wide receiver. And then I was actually very pleased to see that a Bills scout, Roth, compared Derek Rogers to Eric Moulds as well. So that kind of made me feel a little bit better about my observation from a few months ago. He's big. He's very aggressive. He will out-jump players for the ball at the highest point. He has good hands, solid route runner. For an undrafted free agent, I gush about him because he truly was a late first, early second round grade in my eyes, talent alone. And usually when you throw in the character, you drop around maybe 2. But the fact that no team bid on him in the draft shocked me, especially since 13 or 14 other teams ended up calling him after the draft trying to sign him. You think someone would have taken a flyer on him in the 7th round if they wanted him that badly?
It definitely did shock me as well. It kind of made me wonder, like what did he do that was so bad in college? It must have been pretty bad. I do love the signing. I believe I read it in your article, Ryan, or it was probably in a different article where the Bills they possibly guaranteed some of his contract in order to sign him, because I believe there was about 6 or 7 other teams that were giving him a call, and he chose the Bills. So I love the pick, or I love the signing.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely seems like he's going to be given every opportunity to make the team.
Absolutely.
Like you said, he has great hands. He runs great routes. I mean, in Tennessee, he was considered, their best wide receiver. So, seeing the Cordero Patterson, going so high in the draft, and Justin Hunter, if he was better than both of them, then I definitely love the signing.
Absolutely. He led the SEC in receiving in 2011, and then he transferred to Tennessee Tech, and he put up very good numbers there too, considering the quarterback play obviously wasn't up to par at the lower division.
Yep.
So I think working out with Robert Woods since January absolutely helped the Bills get an inside track on him.
That's true.
I think that he shares the same agent as Woods, and I believe Goodwin. I believe they all share the same agent. That also probably helped a little bit too.
Yeah, the agent's probably loving that.
That, and I think his agent saw that opportunity to come in right away and make an impact on this team, where Stevie Johnson's really the only wide receiver threat that the Bills have. And I see Rodgers as the kind of pick that in 2 to 3 years if he pans out the way fans are hoping he does, we could have one of the most talented offenses in the AFC with Stevie Johnson, Woods, and Rodgers coming. That's a very potent attack.
Oh, absolutely.
So if I'm E.J. Manuel, I was very happy with how the rest of the weekend finished out.
Yes, I agree.
And then maybe some less known guys to the common fans coming out, but fans are really loving Keith Pugh out of Howard, another favorite to make the team. What are your thoughts on him?
My cousin Damon, his Twitter handle is D-Rocks the Party. He does a lot of small school scouting, and Keith Pugh is one of the first people that he told me about this year. So I watched a lot of footage of him. He finished his career with 7 at that level, which is just an amazing 3 to 4 seasons total to be in the backfield that often. He actually had a nice performance against Rutgers in 2012. Great instincts, can play in coverage. I like that he can play in coverage just like with Kiko Alonso, who we grabbed in the second round. I like that we're grabbing these linebackers who can cover those receivers, those tight ends. They're versatile. So I'm thrilled with it. I think he and Rodgers have the best chances of making the team.
I tend to agree with that. He definitely does seem like he is versatile. He's a pretty big guy, like a Kiko. So I definitely think that he'll be one of the yays as far as the players who might make the team.
Yeah, and again, I think positionally, if you're an undrafted guy coming into the Bills and you're coming in as a wide receiver or a linebacker, you're going to have a pretty good shot to make this team, where those were some of the biggest needs going into draft weekend, especially with this new defense, how they're going to be shifting people around. No one really knows which position they're playing. I feel like he's versatile enough to fill multiple roles. And I listened to the interview he did with Sal Capaccio, and where he said he's going to be on the coach's hip like a pistol. And that's the kind of player that I like. And the fans love this guy. I think he's going to be a special team standout, too. And we need that. We need a lot of that in Buffalo. So I love the pickup. Now, outside of that, though, I'd like to know, both of you guys, what are your top undrafted free agents out of those two who are kind of the favorites to make the team? Everyone else I'm kind of new on. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
I think the offensive guard out of Syracuse, Zach Chibane, I want to say his name is.
Chibane, yes.
Yeah, the Doug Marrone guy. Doug Marrone, he coached him up in Syracuse. He knows all about him. We definitely need an offensive guard, so he already knows the system. So I think he might have a good fit, for making the team.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Marrone knows what he's going to get out of him. He was a starter at Syracuse for 3 seasons. We do need some depth on our offensive line. I really like Nickel Roby out of USC. He's very, very small, though, 5'7", about 170 pounds. He played outside at USC, and USC didn't play a ton of slouches. I mean, they played some good competition.
Yep, that's right.
He had 24 pass breakups. He's aggressive, but at the same time, the big physical NFL wide receivers is a whole different game. So it'll all depend on how he does in training camps and in preseason, especially when he is matched up against receivers that are much bigger than he is, and how he handles them. But I think he was a very underrated undrafted free agent that we brought in, as well as Vernon Kearney, another cornerback out of Lane. He was a very, very good cornerback in the lower level. Will it transition over into the NFL? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, because the competition he was playing against obviously wasn't NFL quality. But he's another guy that I would keep an eye on.
Yeah, and with those 2 cornerbacks, I love cornerbacks, and we needed to bring some in. The guy from USC, again, the tape I watched, though, he does play bigger than his size suggests.
Yeah.
Will that translate to the NFL? Will he be able to get on the line and bump with guys? I don't know. But I can't wait to see what he does in training camp this year. And then Kearney out of Lane has great size, and to match that size, he has very good speed. And so the only question I have for him is, again, the competition he played in, is it going to take him 2 to 3 seasons to get used to that physical nature of the NFL and how physical these receivers can be? I see him more of a long-term project at the cornerback position.
Yes, very much so.
And like you said,
go ahead, Pierre.
No. I was gonna say, yeah, like you said, Aaron, the cornerback from Lane Kearney, he's a pretty big guy. So I see how Seattle has those 2 big corners who are locking everyone down. So hopefully he can pan out, definitely. And what were you gonna say, Ryan?
I was going to chime in with Brandon Kaufman, a wide receiver from Eastern Washington. He is going to have a tough time making the team because we do have so much talent all of a sudden at wide receiver. But he's a guy that I would watch. If the Bills carry 6 wide receivers, he could get that 6th spot. He led the FCS in receiving as a junior. He has good hands. He would be a nice red zone target in the NFL. But at the same time, I think they have 5 spots tied up this year, even if Marquise Goodwin and T.J. Graham are similar. I see them both on the team this year. Next year, that could change. But I think between Stevie, Woods, Graham, Goodwin, and Rogers, those are 5 right there. And then for the 6th spot, maybe they keep Brad Smith as a jack of all trades. I think they would probably cut him, though, to free up some money. They've been hyping up easily year after year, but he always seems to have some kind of injury, some kind of ailment. So I don't know if he'll pan out. I really like Kaufman in this spot. Or they could even keep your former guest of the show here, Doran Dickerson, because Dickerson could be a wide receiver / tight end / H-back. So if they like the versatility, they might keep him as their 6th receiver. But Kaufman, if he isn't on the 53-man roster, I would think he would be a great addition to the practice squad, and hopefully no one else would take him.
Right. I see him as a potential practice squad guy too. Now, with a guy with that kind of size, what's your opinion on could he play tight end in the NFL, or would he need to put on a bigger frame for that?
He would need a bit bigger of a frame to do that, especially in the blocking aspect of it. Could it happen? Sure. I mean, they've taken project players before, and they've had them do things like that. Obviously, Jason Peters was a former tight end, and he had to transition to the offensive line role, and he was already a big tight end as is, but he did add a little weight and muscle onto his frame to do that. So is it a possibility? Sure. I think he'd be better off staying at wide receiver, but you never know what teams are going to do in the NFL.
Now, Ryan, I know he signed a few safeties, but what are your thoughts on Jordan Dangerfield? He's a safety that we got on as a free agent. You know anything about him?
He's another one of those hard hitters from Towson. I liked his aggressiveness on the field. I like the hard hitting. Again, he has a really good chance in my eyes, to possibly be a practice squad guy this year. I don't think he's going to cut the 53-man roster, but he has some talent. We did take some chances on some guys from some smaller schools, and I think a few of them are going to pan out.
And I know we signed a defensive tackle in free agency to kind of be a versatile defensive lineman. There's a lot of concern amongst the fan base of that switching to this new defense, and we have 2-4-3 defensive tackle type guys, and we brought in these other two through the undrafted free agency. Do you think either of those guys have a shot to really do anything in this new defense, or are they just kind of for practice?
That's a good question. The guy out of Cal, Tapodi, I'm not sure how you
I don't know. Yeah.
He's a 5-tech, and he's a very good run stopper. But besides that, he needs a lot of work in his game. Practice squad possibility. Maybe he impresses and somehow wins a roster spot. The thing with the undrafted free agents is a lot of the time they're facing an uphill battle as is. The other one that we took out of Georgia Tech, he's a little too slow for my liking. Cross.
Yeah.
He's another one of those 5-techs out of Georgia Tech. So a little slow. I don't like his odds as much as I like Tapodi out of Cal.
Awesome. Was there anyone? We brought in 2 running backs. I mean, that's probably the hardest position on this team to crack a spot on. I mean, maybe they cut Tashard Choice. I don't see that, and I can't see them bringing 4 guys into season.
I do like Drew Smith though, out of Albany. He's a very impressive running back. He could challenge him for that third spot. I'm not sure if it'll happen, but he's another one of those guys that I think has a great chance of making the practice squad. 18 touchdowns last year as a senior. Albany obviously didn't face the big boys in college football, obviously, so the 18 touchdowns can be a little misleading, but I think he has a lot of talent, so he could impress some people.
I'd love to see a push there in the depth chart. You know, I love seeing undrafted guys come up and push the vets, and that can only lead to benefits for the whole team. We're actually going to have Drew Smith on the show here in the next week.
Very good.
So you have to check that out.
Yeah, we're definitely cheering for Drew Smith.
Was there anything you wanted to finish up with? Any thoughts or anything you wanted to send off the audience with, Ryan?
The one other undrafted free agent that I like that, again, faces an uphill battle is Jeff Toole, the quarterback. He looks like a quarterback, the prototypical quarterback. He has the size, he has the frame, he has the talent. But he's had some bad luck as well in college. He hasn't been on the most talented teams. So he's someone else to keep an eye on. Doubt he makes the roster, especially since they obviously have Manuel, they have Cobb, and they have Jackson right there. But he could be one of those project quarterbacks that we keep around on the practice squad. There's a lot to like about him. Other than that, I'm working on a sophomore spotlight series over at BuffaloBillsDraft.com. We'll have another one out tomorrow, actually, on Cordy Glenn. And then at Queen City Sports, I'll be doing some work on realistic expectations for C.J. Spiller in the 2013 season, 2013-2014 season. So.
All right, cool. Now, is that QueenCitySports.com?
QueenCitySports.net.
.net, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. And and I like to share quite a bit of Ryan's stuff, especially that sophomore spotlight. I love the one you did on Gilmore.
Yes,
thank you.
That was nice.
I'm looking forward to.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, hopefully we get to have you back on here as we prepare for the training camp and season. So.
I would love that.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for coming.
No problem at all, Ryan. Appreciate it again.
All right.
All right.
Hey, have a great day, guys.
All right, you too, man.